Alright guys, welcome back to Valorant News. The drama continues on the current meta here in Valorant. TenZ giving his very deep perspective indeed on exactly what needs to change to fix Valorant right now and make it more sensible going into the future and actually just more playable from a competitive and a casual perspective. TenZ reckons that potentially agent bans might need to come into play, not necessarily to stop Neon, but potentially to stop Neon. Changes could well be necessary. Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. Neon is kind of everywhere right now, and we'll get into that over the coming minutes. First of all, AAK retires from competitive play, leaving the VCT professional stage, of course. Player for Tyloo, former player, I believe, for Weibo Gaming as well. So they are making, of course, mandated changes to their lineup going into next season over there in the Chinese region. Of course, it was nearly the case, not necessarily nearly, we never know how true it was, but there were, of course, some rumours that Dragon Ranger Gaming were going to be a potential candidate to sign Aspas. Maybe they had more money than we thought they did. Of course, in the end, that never happened. Aspas is not going to China. He is going to MIBR in the Americas, to our understanding. We also saw this yesterday, so obviously hyping up the Game Changers World Championship coming soon. The World Championship is over. The season is over for basically everyone, but not for the Game Changers players. So on the 8th until the 17th of November, that's when, well, those are the dates you got to watch out for, of course. 10 teams are going to be there across various regions, and this is how it's going to go. So, yeah, Team 1 to Team 10 are going to be based on the seedings in the various regions, so we'll see exactly what that looks like in the bracket in a second. And then, of course, double elimination bracket all the way through to the championship with, well, 4 of the teams starting from some of the earlier rounds. So excited to see who's going to win this one. Is it going to be SR, G2 Goes, and of course there's other strong teams in the Americas as well. And yeah, as it stands, this is the way the bracket looks. So based on the information we now have, it's either going to be SR or G2 Goes in either of these kind of Team 1, Team 2 positions. And then after that, we kind of see the development from there. Interesting bracket. 10-team brackets are always going to be kind of strange. But these, of course, are your 10 teams that are going to be there in attendance. FlyQuest Red alongside SR from North America. And then it's MIBR from the Brazilian circuit points that qualified as well. We also saw yesterday TSM. They confirmed the departure of a number of their individuals because we know that TSM have kind of been in and out of Valorant over the last couple of years. And, well, we know in Tier 2, does it really make all that much sense to support it on a very high level? Not necessarily. TSM seemingly have come to a similar conclusion, and well, a Proto, Faded, Poise, Sim, they're all gone. Of course, Sim, we believe, is going to potentially be on his way to Evil Geniuses for next season. So that might be partially what's inspired some of these changes. But yeah, wishing the best for all of these fellas. And I just do wonder whether TSM or any org in that kind of position is going to return again to Tier 2. Because the way things stand, especially all the publicity around it, so many organizations not just leaving Tier 2 Valorant, but giving a big statement as to why, the lack of support from Riot, the fact that it just doesn't make any financial sense. And look, Riot will have to understand on some level at least that if they want to have this promotion period going from Premier into Challenges into the main VCT, and of course ideally as well as the way that Riot perceive things from Game Changers too. But as we mentioned the other day, Game Changers is better supported in so many respects than the actual Challenger scene. So, and we know that Game Changers is a step below in terms of pure competition challenges, and that of course is a step below in pure competition the VCT. So if you are a Game Changers player, you're not going to get signs, I would say, very, very unlikely to get signed directly into a VCT team. It's far more likely you'll go to Challenges, as the likes of, let's say, Bob has done, and try and make it work there to then take the next step. And that's a challenge, but of course it's a challenge that many are willing to take on. The problem is, if you're making way more money and getting way more support from organizations in Game Changers, why would you ever move to Challenges? And I think this is the problem that Riot have to deal with, is that the pipeline just doesn't make that much sense if Challenges isn't that well supported. One of the purposes, of course, is to have some of the VCT teams have their own academies, basically, in Challenges. That would help. That will help massively if they can, mandate that in some regards. But some of these organizations, of course, have had enough of their time in the Valorant world, despite maybe success they had back in the day, you could argue, in the case of TSM. Valorant Asia Invitational, RRQ, are going to be there, so that's pretty exciting stuff, certainly from the Chinese perspective, right, having RRQ from the Pacific also there as well. And then we also have this, so the 2024 Soup Valorant League. This is an event 10th to the 15th of December. then it's going to be these teams. So Rapid Lofi, made in Thailand, and then we get some of the VCT rosters: Billy Gaming, Talon Esports, NRG, Sen, Gen.G, DRX. So this is a big one, right? This is a big one to get the new DRX team, which is controversial, to get the new Gen.G roster, which is very interesting with Foxy9 and etc, Yoman there as well. The new Sen, NRG, once they officially confirm everything. Talon are very exciting with Primi. Like we know that TenZ the other day said that he reckons that Zekken and Primi are potentially from their regions the two most respective talented players from a pure aim and mechanics perspective. BLG, Billy Gaming versus NRG, rematch is possible here, right? To see BLG up against, FNS and the guys again, that would be comedy. So, yeah, excited for this one. There are some good tournaments coming up over the next couple of months. Of course, Rebel Home Grounds in November. There's some other ones coming up in the early to middle part of December. So at least there are some things happening. But again, most of the teams that are going to these, big tournaments are the VCT teams, which is fair and I think is what people want to see. But because there just aren't that many Challengers teams invited, it just makes things ever more challenging, I guess, for that scene. But let's talk about some of the drama on what needs to change about Valorant, because look, at the end of the day, Valorant is Valorant. It's been out for a few years now. The maps are, okay, they bring new maps in, they bring new agents in from time to time, but I think everyone, especially a guy like TenZ, who's played the game every day for years and continues to stream it every day, is kind of wondering, okay, what can I really do? Can I keep grinding the game all the time? Should I make content in a different way? Should I move to do something else for a little time? Or like, what needs to change with Valorant to make it feel less stale, maybe, for some of the players? That's not just for, the streamers, but that's also potentially for the pro players as well. We know that as we've seen, a number of pros that you wouldn't necessarily have expected to retire early have done. I mean, not necessarily just talking about TenZ here, but there's been a few departures over the last few years, because TenZ's retirement makes sense, right? Makes so much money streaming, I get it for sure. But many other players in recent months and years have just stepped away when you might not necessarily feel like they could have done. Now, the Neon meta isn't necessarily a part of that, but I think what TenZ has to say in a second is maybe relevant here, because the Sunset changes are pretty good, I would say, but as Durka says, right now, Sunset is dominated by Neon and, using the Bucky, right? Neon is absurd, and right now, the meta is not especially favorable. I mean, there are clips like this going around. Here we are, for example, on the split, and oh, well, you saw Neon around the corner. Good luck winning this gunfight, because Neon then slides out, gets the gunfight, and then slides away. So what are you going to do about that? The answer is not all that much.
Acts have been going down in quality, and the games have been becoming very lifeless for ranked, at least. If it continues on a trend like that, it'll just be in a similar state of League of Legends, where people like watching it, and it's fun to watch, and they'll pop up for events, but people are either one, addicted and then play it, or two, a lot of people quit because the state of the game is not so great. I mean, I think for League, it's more of a state of the community thing. And then for Valorant, I think the current agent state is kind of boring. I think Valorant is still growing as a game. I think it's just more of the rank state. Because I think there is a really big casual scene in the game outside of tier 1 pro play. For any form of pro play, or challengers, tier 2, stuff like that, the rank scene as a whole, I think, is dying. That's what I would say. Because if you play rank leaderboards, you climb high enough to see what Radiant and the top 500 is it's just pretty lifeless. And then also the tier 2 scene is kind of completely dead at the moment. No orgs want to invest into the game. Honestly, I actually think putting Valorant within a franchise state high-key kind of the competitive ecosystem up a lot, because so many players that were pretty talented and they were trying to go pro and stuff and become a tier 1 team and qualify events, you're kind of gate kept out of that, and you have to spend an entire year where maybe, just maybe, if you're the absolute best of your region, to compete in a multiple region tournament for one spot in the franchise league for 2 years. I think that's kind of, I think what I would consider peak Valorant would be, I think there should be a character ban, just one ban per team, so you have more dynamic gameplay within the game. I think, okay, where you see a normal tactical FPS and where you see Valorant, I don't think Valorant is a true tactical FPS, and so for that reason, they can kind of be more like a MOBA in a way where there's more dynamic comps, and people will pick comps that other teams are not good at, or you'll have a fucking Jack's pocket pick player and you'll make stuff work around that. Stuff like that I think would be really interesting. So I guess in a way, all characters being viable would be really cool. and just being able to play stuff that's not necessarily meta. Like, I think it'd be cool, for example, if you're playing Ascent and you can ban out one of the main key characters of the perfect Ascent comp. You ban out KO. What would happen? Would they run double duelist? Would people run like different stuff? Like, who knows? You have to run a different flash character. You can run like a double controller character. I think stuff like that. You have to spec more into the creativity of the game rather than the game being like certain metas on certain maps, and it's just really weird.
So we saw this the other day when Zekken said Neon Slide should insta reload your gun, and then of course TenZ kind of tongue in cheek says if you slide into someone and hit someone, you should just instant kill them, right? So or maybe it's just you should insta kill your own personal character, right? Maybe that's the solution to make Neon less strong. No one look, the game is meant to be on some level a tactical shooter, right? When you play against Neon, you play even with Neon, doesn't always feel like the most tactical shooter. And Neon's an interesting character, and you know, at the end of the day, Valorant is about the characters and the agents and the champions as they're called over there in League of Legends. But TenZ's idea is pretty interesting, and I feel like this is probably inevitable. They've got to at least consider this relatively soon, because this is how it works in League, right? When you're going to play the game, you get some picks and bans, and then the champions are chosen from there on. So I think it creates a more interesting meta, first of all, but also it means that many of the teams have to be very adaptable. You can't just, as TenZ suggested, use the standard Ascent comp on Ascent. You might have to make a change. Even if each team just got one agent ban, right? I think that would make things very interesting. Neon wouldn't always get bans, but sometimes she would, and therefore certain players would have to be more adaptable, and the meta might end up being better. I don't know. What do you guys think in the comment section about that idea? Will they do that immediately? Will they do that this season? I don't know, but I feel like this idea is maybe somewhat inevitable, that at some point, because especially as you keep adding more and more and more agents into the game, eventually some sort of pick ban or some system like that for Valorant agents has to be inevitable at some point. And TenZ reckons that it would actually make the game a lot more interesting now if it was to happen immediately, that you got at least each team could ban one agent. It's not the biggest deal ever, but if that was possible, I think it would make the meta more interesting. Like, let's say whenever you played Evil Geniuses, if Ye's going to be running the Chamber, you just ban Chamber, you force him to use something else, or you ban Jet for certain players or whatever. I think it would add something to the depth of the game, and it would also ensure that players have to be versatile on multiple agents, and the players that are and the teams that are, they get rewarded for being so, which is probably a good thing. But as ever, very much intrigued to your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.